Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It wasn't the cheating that broke me. It wasn't even the lies. It was the laugh track underneath my humiliation. Let me rewind. 3 weeks ago, I got a strange message from a guy I didn't know. No greeting, no explanation, just a 10-second audio clip. In the background, I heard my wife's voice. Unmistakable, loud and confident like she always is when she's got an audience. Oh, Oliver? He's background noise. Reliable, boring, always there. He's like furniture with a job. Laughter. Wild, cackling laughter. Someone wheezed. Another person said, "Girl, you're brutal." I sat there holding my phone like it was burning through my hand. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just listened. Again. And again. And again. She had recorded that on a podcast. Her podcast. A comedy show called Modern Chaos, where she and her coworkers told stories from the edge of relationships. I never listened. I never thought I had to. Turns out, I was the punchline in 5 separate episodes. Turns out, everyone else knew before I did. One episode was titled Accidental Settling. Another one, My Husband Thinks He's the Main Character. But the worst one, the one that made my stomach physically hurt, was called Plan B is Better Than Being Alone. She called me Plan B, publicly, over and over, with a smirk in her voice and zero regret. I was the man she married when no one else came through. The man she pitied, not loved. The guy who made a good paycheck, didn't ask too many questions, and wouldn't make a fuss if she needed a girl's trip. And the world laughed with her. I started getting messages, sympathy, mockery, screenshots, clips. One even came from her ex. Yeah, him. He wrote, "Thought you should know. This is how she talked about me too." Before she left. That's when I knew this wasn't just about a joke. This was about a truth she never said to my face. She didn't cheat with her body first. She cheated with her words. And I was about to find out just how far those words had already gone. I didn't sleep the night I got that clip. I just sat there in the kitchen, lights off, phone in hand, listening to my wife turn me into a national joke. I must have played the audio 30, 40 times, trying to convince myself I misheard something, that it was taken out of context, that maybe it wasn't really her voice, but it was her. The same tone she used when mocking commercials on TV, or when she rolled her eyes at my stories. She was comfortable. Too comfortable. By 4 a.m., I was on her podcast site. I'd never paid attention to her Modern Chaos show before. I thought it was just harmless fun, office gossip, quirky millennial talk. She'd started it during lockdown with 2 friends from work, and I always figured it was her way of blowing off steam. I never imagined I was the steam. I clicked through every title. Plan B is Better Than Being Alone. When Furniture Talks Back. How to Ghost Your Own Husband. The names hit me like cold water, but I told myself they were just edgy clickbait. Until I hit play. There was no mistaking it. She wasn't just cracking jokes. She was telling stories. About me. About us. And they weren't even exaggerated. They were distorted. She told her listeners I once cried when a waiter got my order wrong, when in reality, I had a full-blown panic attack from work burnout and just happened to be in a restaurant. She said I couldn't satisfy her emotionally or otherwise. Her co-hosts laughed and chimed in with their own dead bedroom stories. She said I was sweet but not the kind of man that stirs your soul. Just the kind that fills your gas tank. Then came the unpublished file, hidden in a folder on our shared laptop. A raw recording, untitled, just sitting there on the desktop like it wanted to be found. Maybe that was her mistake. Or maybe some twisted part of her wanted me to hear it. I put my headphones on. The file started with a sigh. "Okay, we're off the record, so let me be real for a second," she said. "Sometimes I wish I had just waited 1 more year. 1 more year and I wouldn't have settled for Oliver. But back then I was tired. Everyone else had moved on, I felt left behind, and he was safe. Good credit, no drama, always available. And honestly, I thought I could learn to love him. But you can't fake spark forever. No laughter, no punchline, just silence. She didn't even sound angry. She sounded bored. like I was a job she regretted taking. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, completely still, because for the first time everything made sense. The distance, the way she started locking her phone, the way she smiled bigger when I wasn't around. She never stopped looking for something better. And apparently she'd found it. Because tucked in the very same folder was a picture. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't even romantic. Just a photo of her and a man I didn't know. On a balcony somewhere warm. Holding drinks. Laughing. Her head on his shoulder. The date stamp? 2 months ago. The caption? Finally got what I deserve. For the next 2 days, I moved through life like a ghost. I still went to work. I still answered emails. I still asked people how their weekend was, like everything was fine. But inside, I was stuck on that photo. Margot with her head tilted onto some guy's shoulder. Her eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. She wasn't pretending in that picture. She looked alive, like someone who had finally exhaled after holding her breath through a life she didn't want. I didn't recognize the man. He wasn't from our circle of friends. Not a coworker either, or at least not one I'd ever heard of. He had that polished look, like someone who drinks wine with lunch and reads finance blogs for fun. Tan, clean-shaven, dressed in a casual linen shirt that looked expensive in that effortless way. The background looked like some resort, maybe in Arizona or the coast. Definitely not local. I stared at that image so long, I memorized every detail, every color, every shadow. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I uploaded the photo into a reverse image search tool. I don't even know what I was hoping to find. Maybe another post, maybe something public that would give me a name. Anything. And it worked. 3 pages in, there it was, same guy, different photo posted on a public LinkedIn profile. Name, Bryce Linwood. Location, Scottsdale, Arizona. Founder of some leadership wellness company. Classic buzzword nonsense. His feed was filled with motivational quotes, hiking photos, and videos of him giving seminars about finding your inner fire. The kind of man who probably says things like high-value male without flinching. I clicked through his posts and eventually found it, her comment. Margot had written under one of his videos. Still thinking about that weekend on the cliffs. You made it unforgettable. She added a flame emoji. A flame emoji. That was the moment something inside me cracked. All this time, I thought I was losing her to some fantasy version of life. I didn't realize the fantasy had a name, a face, and probably his own key to her hotel room. That night, I waited until she went into the shower and texted the number I found on Bryce's company page. I didn't think he'd reply, but he did instantly. Hey, who's this? I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I'm the guy whose wife you're screwing. I hit send. 3 dots appeared, then stopped, then appeared again. Then finally, didn't know she was married. I'm sorry, man. I almost dropped the phone. Didn't know? How could he not know? She wore her wedding ring in that damn balcony photo. She used my name in her podcast. How do you accidentally fall into a relationship with someone while ignoring the giant signs that say, taken? But it got worse. He followed up with another message. I'll step back. She didn't say anything about a husband. She said she was separated. Separated. She told him we were separated. The shower turned off. I put the phone down, face down, like it was radioactive. I stood up and walked to the kitchen and gripped the counter until my knuckles went white. All this time, she was building a new life. Quieter one. One where I didn't even exist. When she came out in her robe, toweling off her hair, she smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like everything was still in place. And in that moment, I realized she didn't think I knew. Not a clue. She thought she had time. She thought she was still in control. But that's the thing about jokes. Eventually, someone stops laughing, and someone else starts watching everything burn. I had never rehearsed anything in my life. Not for school presentations, not for work meetings, not even for my wedding vows. But that night, after reading Bryce's message and watching Margot walk around the kitchen, humming like she hadn't just deleted me from her life, I started practicing in my head, over and over again, what I would say, how I'd say it. whether I'd raise my voice or keep it cold, whether I'd show her the screenshot or let her dig her own grave with her lies. But nothing prepares you for the moment you look at someone who promised to love you and realize they're already somewhere else. We were sitting on the couch. She was eating microwave popcorn straight from the bag, legs tucked under her like she always did when she was too lazy to use a bowl. Some dating show was playing in the background. I couldn't even hear it. My heart was beating too loud. I waited until she reached for her phone, and before she could unlock it, I quietly said, "So, how long have you been separated?" Her hand froze mid-air. She turned slowly, eyes narrowing. "What?" I didn't blink. "That's what you told him, right? That we're separated. That you're free." There was a pause, a flicker in her eyes. Then, without missing a beat, she laughed. "You're joking. Oh my God. Are you actually jealous?" I stayed silent. She blinked, and the smirk disappeared. "Wait, are you serious?" I pulled out my phone, opened the chat with Bryce, and slid it across the coffee table. Her face drained of color. Not because of guilt, no, because she'd been caught. "You went through my stuff?" she snapped. "Nope. Your boyfriend gave himself away. Funny thing is, he thought you were just lonely. He said he'd back off. Seems like a decent guy." She stood up, suddenly defensive. "You don't understand, Oliver. I needed space. You've been emotionally checked out for years. You make everything about you. You think being quiet makes you some kind of saint. But do you even know how exhausting it is to carry all the passion in a relationship by yourself?" That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was rehearsed. I realized then that she'd been preparing her version of this confrontation for weeks. Maybe longer. She had her lines ready. She was the heroine of her own monologue, and I was just the boring side character who overstayed his purpose. "Passion?" I said. "You didn't want passion. You wanted applause." She rolled her eyes. "This again. You wanted people to clap while you turned your husband into a punchline. You built a podcast audience off my humiliation. You lied to another man to create a backup plan. And now that it's unraveling, you're angry at me for finding out?" There was a long silence. The only sound in the room was the TV in the background. A woman on the screen was fake crying over a breakup, which felt a little too poetic. Then Margot did something I'll never forget. She looked at me, dead in the eyes, and said, "Fine. I was going to tell you. I was trying to figure out the least painful way to end this." "The least painful for who?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the bedroom, slammed the door, and left me sitting there in the living room with a cold bag of popcorn and a boiling heart. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made coffee. She packed a gym bag. She even kissed me on the forehead like we were still us. But I knew now. There was no us. There was her image, her followers, her fantasy life, and then there was me, the leftover. But leftovers don't stay on the plate forever. I had one card left. One she never saw coming. That morning, after she kissed my forehead like she hadn't shattered me the night before, I waited until she left for her spin class, which I was almost certain was just code for FaceTiming Bryce from the gym's cafe. I didn't stop her. I smiled. I even waved as she backed out of the driveway. That was the last time I'd let her think she was still controlling the narrative. The last time I'd play the fool. The second she left, I sat down at her desk and opened her podcast software. It was all there. Her login autofilled, drafts saved, a folder of unreleased audio clips with cutesy labels like Hot Take EP12 and Too Real for Spotify. I didn't want to hear any of it, but I made myself listen. Every second. If I was going to be erased from our life story, I wanted to at least hear what version she was replacing me with. And it was worse than I expected. In one clip, she joked about how I fold laundry like it's a religious ritual. In another, she told her co-hosts that I smelled like someone who lives at a library, and that being intimate with me felt like hugging your therapist. They laughed. One of them even said, "Girl, you need to cheat just to remind yourself you're still alive." But it wasn't just the mockery. It was the tone, like I was a charity case. Like being with me made her noble. Like I should be grateful she hadn't already walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even slam the laptop shut. I just sat there for a long, long time until something inside me hardened. That kind of shift where you stop trying to win someone back and start building the exit. Later that afternoon, she texted me, "Heading to Kennedy's for a podcast brainstorm. Don't wait up, kiss mark." I stared at the kiss emoji for a while. How surreal it felt to see her using affection as punctuation, like she wasn't casually dismantling everything we built. That night, instead of waiting for her, I packed. Not everything, just the essentials. A suitcase, my laptop, the important documents. I left her the rest. Let her enjoy the house she turned into a stage. I even cleaned the kitchen, wiped down the counters, folded a blanket over the back of the couch. I wanted everything to look peaceful. I wasn't running. I was disappearing. Before I left, I did one last thing. I opened her podcast software again and uploaded a new episode. Just one. I titled it For Margot. It had no intro music, no co-host chatter, no clever sound effects. Just my voice, steady and quiet. I said, "You told the world our marriage was a joke. You laughed. They laughed. I listened. Every single word. And now I'm giving you the ending you wanted, silence. You won't find me in this house. You won't find me in your phone. You won't find me in the next man's shadow. You'll only find me here, in this file, reminding you that I was real. And you lost me. On record." Then I clicked publish. I scheduled it to go live the next morning, the same time she usually dropped new episodes. When I walked out the front door, I didn't slam it. I closed it gently, like I was putting a storybook back on the shelf. She wanted to be the narrator. She just forgot I was still the one living it. I spent the night in a cheap extended stay motel on the edge of town, the kind where the carpets never feel fully clean no matter how often they vacuum. The lamp buzzed quietly above the bed, and the walls were paper thin. I could hear the guy next door coughing through what sounded like his 8th cigarette. But I slept. Not peacefully, not deeply, but for the first time in weeks, I slept without her voice hovering above me like a judge behind a microphone. I didn't dream, just silence. At exactly 7 a.m., her episode went live. I timed it that way on purpose. It was her usual drop hour, the sacred window when her fans would wake up, pop in their earbuds, and tune in expecting sarcasm and hot takes. This time, though, they got me. No intro, no theme song, just the plain, exhausted voice of the man she'd been publicly belittling for months. I sat at a diner booth near the motel, slowly eating dry toast and watching her social media like it was a live broadcast from a battlefield. It didn't take long. Comments started pouring in within the first half hour. "Wait, is this real? Is this her husband? This isn't funny. Is he okay? Margot, what the hell? You really clowned this man for months and he just walked out like a ghost." That episode hit harder than anything you've ever uploaded. I kept scrolling. Some people were confused. Some were angry. A few accused me of emotional manipulation, but most were stunned into silence. One of her followers simply commented, "Damn, you lost him." And somehow we all heard it happen in real time. I wasn't proud of the drama. That wasn't the goal. But after months of being the faceless man in her stories, I finally got to be a voice. Just once. Around 9:15 a.m. She texted me, "What did you do?" I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, "Take it down. Seriously, we can talk about this. Don't ruin everything." That one made me laugh. Ruin everything? As if I hadn't just spent months being chipped away by her stories, her mockery, her careful rewriting of our life to fit her curated narrative. She had been erasing me in real time. All I did was leave the final page blank. Then came the phone calls. 12 of them. One after another. I muted them all. I wasn't ready to hear her voice yet. Not the real one. Not the performance version. At noon, her podcast page went silent. No comments, no updates. She disabled the episode from public view. I'd expected that. But by then, the damage was already done. Listeners had already downloaded it, clipped it, shared it. You can't unring a bell. You can't unpublish the truth. By the end of the day, I got an email from her co-host, Kennedy. Subject: "What the hell, Oliver?" The body of the email was short. Just a line. "You blindsided her. That wasn't fair." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Fair? What part of any of this had been fair? I didn't respond to her either. Later that night, I walked into a small public library on the far side of town and signed up for a temporary card. I used one of their computers to start the process of changing passwords, closing joint accounts, booking a storage unit. Quiet steps. Invisible ones. I wasn't doing this to win anything. Not to teach a lesson. Not to be pitied. I was doing it because I needed a space where I didn't exist as a metaphor. Where I wasn't a punchline or a filler word in someone's show. I was done being the guy people laughed about over coffee. She wanted to go viral. Now she had. By the time the dust from my episode started to settle, Margot had already begun rewriting the fallout. She deleted the podcast file entirely. She issued a short, vague apology on her Instagram story, claiming there had been a misunderstanding between two people who love each other deeply but are navigating a difficult chapter. No mention of my name. No mention of what she actually did. Just another carefully polished sentence, designed to make her the wounded starlet in a drama she had directed from day one. Then came the rebrand. I saw it unfold in real time. The show's logo changed. The podcast was no longer Modern Chaos. It was suddenly called Inner Realignment. Gone were the bright pink graphics and cheeky quotes. In their place were muted earth tones, sunflowers, vague mantras about healing, and soft acoustic music in the background of her videos. Her new tagline? Unlearning what love isn't. I nearly choked on my coffee the first time I read that. This was her plan all along. Not the fallout, she wasn't prepared for that, but the pivot, the reinvention. She was already turning our implosion into inspiration. Already weaponizing the heartbreak she caused into a new brand she could monetize. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was content. I was the storm she survived. And her followers bought it. Not all of them, but enough. The ones who needed something soft and digestible. The ones who didn't care about what actually happened, just how pretty the wreckage looked when lit with the right filter. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so insulting. She sent me another message that week. A voice memo, not a text. I made myself listen to it, even though every part of me wanted to delete it the second it buzzed into my inbox. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Oliver, I don't know where you are, and I'm not even sure you'll hear this, but I just want you to know I'm sorry for making you feel unseen. That was never my intention. I was lost. I was trying to be someone in a world that rewards people for being loud, and I forgot how to be real. I'm working on that now. I hope wherever you are, you're okay. I sat with that message playing in the background of an empty motel room, watching the slow spin of the ceiling fan above me. There was something haunting about how sincere she sounded. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. But sincerity had always been her greatest performance. That was the real tragedy. I didn't know if she was lying anymore, or if she just believed her own stories so much that even the truth felt like fiction to her. And still, I didn't answer. I didn't give her the confrontation she was probably hoping for, the cathartic closure that could become a follow-up episode or a heart-wrenching Instagram caption. I didn't say cruel things. I didn't correct the narrative. I let her keep talking into the void. Because silence wasn't just a punishment. It was freedom. Let her spin whatever version she wanted. Let her sell healing crystals and cry on camera about the pain she caused herself. Let her create a new season where she was the brave survivor of a toxic, loveless marriage. So long as she had to live with the knowledge that the man she mocked walked away without a single scene. She wanted an ending she could control. Instead, she got an absence she couldn't explain. I didn't go back. Not to the house. Not to the marriage. Not even to the version of myself that waited for permission to feel something. I stayed gone. Quietly, consistently, entirely. At first, it felt like drifting. Like I had stepped out of my own life and didn't know where to land. But over time, the silence stopped feeling like punishment. It started to feel like peace. A month after the episode aired, I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore in a different city. The landlord didn't ask questions. The neighbors didn't recognize me. I introduced myself as Oliver, just Oliver. And no one laughed, no one rolled their eyes, no one said I smelled like a library. They just smiled and said, "Nice to meet you." I started writing. Not about her, not about what happened, but about myself. About the parts of me that had gone quiet while I tried to survive someone else's spotlight. I rediscovered things I had long buried. How much I love early mornings, the smell of ink on paper, how peaceful it feels to cook in a quiet kitchen where no one is performing for an audience. And then, one morning, I woke up to a package outside my door. No name, no return address. Inside was a flash drive. I knew it was from her before I even plugged it in. Contained a single audio file. Unpublished confession. It was titled. I almost didn't listen, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice came through the speakers, softer this time. No laughter. No audience. To the man I married. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But if this finds you, I want you to know something. You were never plan B. You were the calm in the storm, and I mistook it for silence. That was my failure, not yours. I listened to the whole thing. Then I deleted it. Because I didn't need her words to heal. I already had. Life didn't become a fairy tale after that. I didn't meet someone new right away. There was no dramatic reunion or grand revenge arc. But I was content. And after everything, that felt like a victory. Margot kept her podcast. She became the face of healing after heartbreak, which I suppose is one way to spin it. I let her. She could keep her listeners, her platform, her narrative. I kept something better. I kept my peace. That's the end of the story. If you've made it this far, thank you. Sometimes walking away quietly is the loudest thing you can do. Now we want to hear from you. What moment from this story hit you the hardest? And why? Was it the balcony photo? The final episode? The silence? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Only on Reddit Confessions.